I want to talk about something that almost no one says out loud, even though it affects millions of men. Men are under an enormous amount of pressure to perform in bed, and almost none of that pressure is matched with actual education. Men are expected to figure sex out on their own, quietly, without guidance, without context, and certainly without ever admitting confusion. And when that doesn't work, the assumption isn't that the education was missing. The assumption is that the man is the problem. That expectation is the cause of so much unnecessary suffering. From a very young age, men are taught that male sexuality is supposed to be automatic. You're supposed to want sex, to be ready for sex, you're supposed to know what you're doing, and your body is supposed to cooperate. There are no meaningful conversations around how arousal actually works, how pressure affects performance, how stress or emotional safety influence erections, or how desire can change over time. There's just this unspoken rule that as a man, you should already know. And if you don't, you keep that to yourself. So men learn about sex in the most chaotic way possible. Porn, rumors, trial and error, silence. None of that actually teaches you how your body responds in real relationships with real emotions and real stakes and real vulnerability. All of that teaches you what sex is quote unquote supposed to look like, not how it functions, and certainly not how it really looks. It doesn't explain why erections fluctuate, why desire changes, why performance anxiety exists in the first place. Now that's the cause, but the effect is that men walk into sexual experiences carrying pressure they don't even realize they're holding. They're trying to perform without understanding the system that they're operating in. They're monitoring themselves, trying to get it right, trying not to fail, all while having no framework for interpreting what their body is doing. And because male sexuality is treated like something that should just work, any deviation feels personal. If something goes wrong, the immediate conclusion isn't curiosity, it's self-blame. And so when something does go wrong, men don't ask questions. They just internalize their shame. They don't ask, why does my body respond this way under pressure? Instead, they think, what's wrong with me? They don't talk about it because talking about it feels like admitting incompetence. Over time, the consequences stack up. Men start to distrust their bodies. They avoid intimacy. They brace during sex instead of enjoying it. They disconnect emotionally because staying present feels risky. Some men stop having sex altogether, not because they don't want it, but because the pressure feels unbearable. Others push through, override their bodies, and hope that it doesn't show. Either way, confidence erodes. And what's tragic about that is that most of these men are not bad lovers. They're not selfish, they're not lazy. They just never received the education that would help them to understand their own arousal or pleasure or response. They were taught to deliver sex, not to experience it. The longer this goes on, the more men start to believe that sexual confidence is something you have or you don't. That everyone else got the manual and somehow you missed it. And once that belief sets in, men stop experimenting. They stop asking and they stop learning. That's the real damage. The solution is education that treats male sexuality as something nuanced, responsive, deeply human. Men need language for what's happening in their bodies. They need frameworks that explain how pressure and stress and emotion and connection affect performance. They need to understand that sexual response is not a test of masculinity, but a reflection of their system. When men understand how their bodies actually work, something really important begins to change. They stop fighting their responses and they start interpreting them. They become more present instead of more controlled, and they communicate more clearly because they are no longer trying to hide their confusion or fear. And paradoxically, performance improves. Not because they're trying to perform better, but because the pressure is gone. Men deserve to know how pleasure works for them. They deserve to understand their own bodies without shame. They deserve an education that makes them feel collaborative instead of evaluative. And when men are given that education, they don't become less accountable. They become more confident, more connected, and more capable of real intimacy. If you've never been taught this, that's not a personal failure. It's a systemic one, and it is fixable. And it is the reason that I wrote this book, Harder, Better, Longer, Stronger. And it is being published on January 27th. If you go now to hblsbook.com, you can sign up to receive $350 in free bonuses to go along with this book, including a special video on what I couldn't put in the book, multiple meditations that you can use by yourself or with a partner, and you can sign up to win a whole bunch of incredible prizes, including a private retreat with me. And actually, for that one, there's no purchase necessary. You can win that without buying the book, but you've got to go to hblsbook.com and sign up now, because after the book is published, those pre-order bonuses are going to disappear for good. I'm Caitlin V. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you here later this week.